Hello, Sea Wolves! Welcome back to the show. Well, the sailing has definitely not gotten more boring over the last 24 hours. I think we could say that most of the skippers have had a pretty lively evening and as we speak are still having a pretty lively sail downwind right now. What an amazing bunch of images. I waited as long as possible to record today to make sure we got as much of the onboard stuff in as possible. And just look at this particular shot just without the music and like listen and hear. It's amazing. That's Justine Metro on Team Snef there, and it's really true when they say that they have to slow down the boats in order to do maneuvers like sail changes and things like that, basically anything on the foredeck, because going at 20 knots plus speeds through seas like that with water coming over the decks at that particular speed and force, you can really understand that it's simply just way too dangerous to go on the front deck with that much water coming over just basically all the time if they're sailing at those type of speeds. So quite impressive to see and hear. Like yeah, I personally really like to see that. I'm sure that you guys are really enjoying it also. Well, let's dive right in. Fortunately, so far no reports of any major damages, but there were a few accidental jibes and things like that. Take a look.
Les amis, quelle nuit de merde. Je sais même plus par quoi commencer. J'ai mal partout. Ça fait des heures que je me bagarre. J'ai commencé par bloquer ma grand voile dans les haubans parce que la drisse a filé et la grand voile est passée derrière les haubans, bloquée. J'ai voulu rouler le petit génaqueur et impossible de le rouler. Donc je me suis retrouvé avec la grand voile en vrac et mon petit génaqueur en vrac aussi, avec des vagues pas possibles, avec du vent pas possible, des gros plantés. Je savais pas quoi faire. Et j'ai essayé, mais je sais pas, 15 ou 20 fois de le rouler. Et puis j'ai réussi finalement. Et je sais même pas pourquoi, donc j'ose même pas le dérouler maintenant. Et après j'ai libéré ma grand voile, bien galéré, en faisant du pré. Et le problème, c'est que j'ai viré de bord et j'ai recoincé ma grand voile dans la bassac de l'autre côté. Et j'arrivais pas du tout à l'enlever, mais pas du tout.
Well, good morning, everyone from the good ship Toot Good. It's day number 3. We successfully rounded Finisterre. Maybe you saw it on the tracker. I took a very westerly option. I decided that it was the most conservative and safe call to do one long leg west. Early morning, just around sunrise, I jibed, and now I'm heading south for a while. It's a beautiful, beautiful day outside. I'll quickly show you how it's looking. So very, very nice day. Good sailing conditions currently. About 23 knots. Downwind sailing. So beautiful way to start the day. I have still a very conservative sail plan. The next 36 hours, 48 hours will stay very windy. Winds well in excess of 30 knots. And I just want to make sure that I don't do anything stupid.
Conrad also made a really nice onboard video as he was passing the Cape, seeing the lights and everything. It looks amazing.
Even if it's only been a day, it's still pretty cool to go and see land pop up on the bow. And now that I'm going around Finisterre, the northwest corner of Spain, and in a pretty tight match race with a whole bunch of other remokers as well. Louis Duc is here, Jean Le Cam, Benjamin Pepin, and I've passed within just a couple of 100 meters of each one of those guys, and so pretty tight crosses here in the dark. But crucially, it's exciting to see the land, because this is the first major landmark on the race course. This is the first left turn before we fire ourselves down the North Atlantic. And who knows, maybe this is going to be the last land I see. Because for sure I'm seeing this, but maybe we'll go through the Canaries, maybe not. Maybe we'll go down the African coast, maybe not. But this could very well be the last land I see until, well, Cape Horn. So fingers crossed I get to see that this time. Otherwise, life is good on board. I haven't really slept a great deal. The excitement and also things to do, and also sort of getting back into the swing of things. So I'm desperately hoping that I can get offshore in a second and get my head down. And when I do, try and get some sleep. You see that flashing red light there? That is about to turn into the world's loudest, most obnoxious alarm. So we've got this alarm that lights up the entire inside of the boat, and it gives me 30 seconds of warning, and then all hell breaks loose with a horrendous noise. Yeah, there we go. So I am getting close to all the boats. It's probably a good time to start this video because I gotta go.
Pretty cool, huh? Well, let's get ready for the most important part of the show. I hope you guys have something delicious in your possibly official Sea Wolf mug as well. Here we go. 3, 2, 1 to another amazing 24 hours of racing. Well, having seen already so much of the cool images over the last 24 hours, let's get right into the tactical situation and the weather here, because there are again some interesting developments about a day and a half, maybe day or two ahead, and the skippers are once again facing an interesting technical choice. So let's take a look at it. If you jump into the screen here with me, you will see like Google Earth, and I painted kind of the route here on. And what's interesting to know, kind of before we get into where they are now, what they're doing, it's good to kind of take a little bit of a longer view, because especially for the people who are kind of following the Vendee Globe maybe for the first time, you may be thinking, it's very important from the start of the race for all of the skippers to really jockey for position and, get as far ahead in the pack as possible. But actually, within the first 2 weeks or so of the race is a time span where, also in previous years, we have actually seen a lot of fan favorites kind of exit the race, lose their Vendee Globe because of damage early on in the race. And so, although it is valuable to have a good position kind of in the overall ranking, of course, throughout the entire race, especially this early in the race, it is kind of dangerous to risk too much. We saw that with Alex Thompson last time, sailing right into Storm Theta, and a few days later being confronted with basically, in the end, irreparable damage and having to end his race early, which is quite a typical thing actually. It's not the first time that something like that has happened. And so why is it? Kind of what is the point, you may wonder, where the position really starts to become important? And so I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a look at that today. And so let me take a different color here. So if we look at the map here, I painted the race route kind of here. So we are now kind of in this position here at Finisterre, and so far they've been going kind of past the coast of Portugal for a little bit. But because there is a new storm sort of brewing here, and that's going to be moving in that direction, and the wind is kind of turning in this, so counterclockwise actually there around this. And so that's going to create some wind kind of in this direction. And so now we're going to see the fleet sort of go more out on the water in order to kind of take that wind, because that system is going to move kind of from east to west. and then they're going to be kind of jockeying through there in this direction. Yeah, hopefully hoping to kind of avoid more problems with, of course, the with the high pressure that can usually be here, you know, anywhere sort of in this position, which can really stop them in their tracks. So that's one thing that they're trying to do right now, that they're kind of working on. But a little bit more further down the road, we have the doldrums. And so the doldrums is basically an area which is here off the coast of Africa, where we have like very hot air here from the Sahara Desert, obviously, that kind of gets, well, actually this is this entire area, that gets blown here off of kind of the point of Africa and sort of crosses the Atlantic there. And so that creates this kind of zone here, where, which is right across the equator also, where the air is just so hot that it more or less stands still and is moving up on the northern hemisphere and down on the other hemisphere. And it creates this kind of boundary layer where we have lots of thunderstorms, rain, but in between there's very often just pretty much no wind. It's like a permanent high pressure zone. And what happens most of the time in most Vendee Globes, which we're also going to see, is that, so this first, let me get rid of this. So the first part of the race, basically until the doldrums, we will see certain people be ahead, certain people behind, but most often when they get to that boundary layer of the doldrums, which it shifts up and down, left and right, sometimes it's more active than in other terms, but once they kind of get to that boundary layer, the fleet compresses, and very often the leaders, even if they have quite a long lead, they'll just kind of stop there, and the rest of the fleet will just keep having wind until they get to that same point. And they very often, the entire fleet ends up very close to each other, like really within a few miles of each other back there. So if you take a lot of risk in the first part, kind of racing towards the doldrums and get a big lead, but you take a lot of risk, if you damage your boat there, usually, often, it's really not worth it, because the real race, you might say, starts from the moment that you know, get through that area of the doldrums. So once they kind of clear this zone here between Africa and South America, once they're through there and they get to kind of the next part of the race, where we have here the St. Helena High, which is another high pressure area, which turns in the counterclockwise direction. So it creates a lot of wind around the edges there. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be sailing down once they get through the doldrums, so from this line or so forward, and then they want to kind of get into those winds, which then later connect to the real, oh, let me delete this here again, which then later connect, sorry, to the really raging winds in the south, which are kind of, you know, raging at a circle in this direction like this. So they're trying to connect from the St. Helena High winds into those kind of polar winds to take them all around the world in the end, right? And so the real race starts, you might say, after the doldrums. Now, it's a little bit of a simplification, because of course it matters if you get there at the slow zone of the doldrums and maybe you get lucky and you fly through pretty easily, then that lead can still be very significant. So I don't want to say that it makes absolutely no sense to take any risk early in the race. That's definitely not true, but really taking a lot of risk in order to get, you know, marginal distance on a first, second or third, or, you know, somewhere early in the fleet, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, to a certain degree you can take some risk, but you really don't want to go crazy, because very often, if you, like, basically in about a week and a half or so, most of them are going to get stuck in the doldrums for a while. So that's kind of the two different ways of thinking that also with the captains right now is living. And so, having a bit that longer view now, let's take a look at the weather. And so, if we look at a bit of a distance, so this is now, and if we scroll forward a little bit, you're going to start seeing what I mean, because when we look here, kind of on the downside of Spain, you start to see here this system that I just talked about that's starting to kind of move that way, with the wind kind of turning in an anti-clockwise way around there. And as time moves forward, we will see that that is starting to move more and more kind of a little bit to the west. Let me delete the lines here again so you can clear. So you can really see this swirl here now. And so with the fleet being kind of spread out more or less around here right now, we see that so if we go back to the moment now, sorry, I gotta switch cursors here sometimes. If we switch back to the moment now, they are slowly starting to maneuver more in that direction, where previously it looked like many of them were indeed, and they have followed the coastline like quite closely already, you know, for quite a longer distance than in the previous editions because of the situation with the wind. But now with this new system kind of developing there, that has a real chance of getting in their way, because the center of that, as we scroll here ahead, you can see the center of that doesn't have that much wind, so they don't want to get stuck in this particular area that has like no wind at all. And as it's moving westward, they want to preferably make use of the stronger wind here on this side of it to kind of get through. And you know, if it passes through, it's no problem to go on the other side also of it as it makes its way west. But there's going to be some strong, not like crazy strong, but some good strong winds around there, which will be great for the sailors to go to. But they want to avoid, of course, the center and the often sort of very low wind areas. You can see this kind of blue areas here in the center and around. So they want to avoid that. And so over the next day and a half or so, what we're now going to see is a lot of kind of jockeying for position to get ready to have a nice line to maneuver through that kind of upcoming system, and then for the fleet to really start making their way and sort of find a good spots to then later move through the doldrums. And if we look at the weather predictions now, so this is the area that I'm really talking about. You can see this kind of blue, slurf here coming off of Africa. That's the zone that we're talking about. And yeah, as they're going to be getting there somewhere probably after Saturday, Sunday, somewhere there, we can see that it's actually quite active at the moment. So you can see all these sort of lines here. There is some wind, but all those tranches are areas where potentially the skippers can get really stuck. And so as they make their longer route, as they choose their longer path, because they're going to be coming down here like somewhere, they're going to want to position themselves to find a patch through somewhere where they will have relatively some wind to kind of get them through, to then get them in a good position to, you can see the St. Helena High here kind of turning around between Africa and South America here. So they're gonna want to find a nice line to kind of move. Oh, let me delete that here again. To move, once they kind of get through the doldrums, to move around there and then into the south. So that's kind of the general plan, and that's what we're going to be seeing over the next day or so. A quick peek at the tracker. We were able to remove the sails. I called it flag yesterday, sorry by mistake. Of course I meant the sails. So that's nice that we have the nice clear overview now. And Sam Goodchild now in the first position, Charlie Dallin in second. But as you can see, there's definitely already a choice going on right now. So you see that much of the fleet is still kind of pointing south, right? And we have pretty much Yom Rishon, and I think also Charlie earlier, or he just tacked again. Oh, he just actually jibed again. So Charlie going down again. But Rishon here is basically the only one in fourth position right now who seems to have made the choice to start making a lot of western movement. And I would personally, it's interesting that yesterday he was doing some interesting things also, and made it to fourth position. So I guess I was right also there with his choice to do a bit more southing and then pick up some wind. It definitely worked for him. And I think right now, again, he's probably making the smart choice to go. He's pretty much the most western boat with the leaders right now. And I would say the most west they can get now, so over the next like 10, 12 hours, the more west they can get, probably the more better it will be once, if we skip ahead here, let's say 11, 20 hours, yeah, you can see that the wind really, the more west they go, the more wind they will kind of keep as the system keeps moving towards the west. So yeah, they really, when you get to kind of this point, you'd rather be here somewhere than here somewhere, right? So yeah, it's important for them now to get more and more west. If we scroll a little bit further through the weather, yeah, we see that it's really, they want to be, I think, preferably on the west side of kind of the circular movement of that system rather than on the east side of it. So, but it's a choice, right? Some of the skippers may choose to be on the east side of it, others may choose to be on the west side. I think we can see a little bit there, well, in the next maybe 2-3 hours or so, I expect we'll see some of the boats jibe and just start making a west or kind of a southwestern course, depending on a bit on what options they have with the wind. But I would say that the more western boats are going to be in a better position for the next like 48 hours now. So the more west they can get in the next 10-12 hours or so, the better it will be for the result as the kind of positioning to get to the doldrums there. So that is kind of what we can expect over the next few hours. Then, very funny, I talked yesterday about maybe you guys coming up with some fun trucker blues, or Imaka blues I called it. And well, we had one person already write something in. It's a little bit cheating because he actually used AI to generate it, but listen to this because it is actually really funny.
We are the sea wolves out in the breeze, sailing for glory, mastering the seas. With coffee in hand, we'll watch them fight, cheering them on through the day and night. 24,000 clicks, their path we trace. Legends are born in this daring race. From start to finish, France calls them back. In the howling wind, they stay on track. Lonely oceans the sailors face as we stay tuned to their endless chase, tracking progress miles left to roam until they cross the line back home. We are the sea wolves howling the breeze, sailing for glory, mastering the seas. With coffee in hand, we'll watch them fight, cheering them on through the day and night.
We are the sea wolves, howling the breeze, sailing for glory, mastering the seas. With coffee in hand, we'll watch them fight, cheering them on day and night. Well, great lyrics, so perhaps they will serve as some inspiration for those of you who want to do some human work on some cool Imaka blues, but it's definitely a first good try. So thank you very much for that, James Curry. Okay, well, that's it for the show today. Thank you, Wolves, again for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, leave your top 5 in the comments below for the next 24 hours, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao!
We are the sea wolves out in the breeze, sailing for glory, mastering the seas. With coffee in